GM. GM. So today what I want to talk about is this connotation that, you don't have the perfect shell, therefore you don't have the perfect build, right? And I want to talk about it because this is something that a lot of people, apparently they have this roadblock in their head where they go, oh, if I can't get XYZ, therefore I can't build this unit, therefore I can't use this unit and I can't play RTA. Game's boring, game sucks, game shit. Okay? Now, I want to try to, break that whole ideology down, alright? Because if you look at how, we build units, it's quite, it's intuitive, right? When you're building this kind of unit, say for example, you want to play a unit on, let's say, let's use the most common one, Revelation here. You want to play Revelation on your DPS because, Revelation did a lot of damage back in the day, right? But at the same time, if you look at the matrices available on this shell, the only way you can obtain speed on this shell is by getting yourself a Swift Rate on the shell. And so if you just looked at the matrix, you would say that this is just for DPS and you're not gonna have a unit that's gonna be super fucking fast. But here's the thing, we have already broken that whole concept down by what we do is we just force in the Swift Rush, right, which means you need 4 pieces to make the tour set. Then you use the DPS piece, any one of them, right? You can go Momentum for the crit rate, you can go Keen Eye for the crit damage, you can go Onslaught for, the 25% attack, or the 10% attack, depending on what your shell is. And then you just use Swift Rate at the end. So at the end of the day, you still get this 50% speed increase and the 20% attack. And that was how a lot of people back in Season 0 were building their DPSs. Very fast, on Revelation, use Revelation to take the first initiative, do a shit ton of damage and potentially just kill off everything, right? And so since we already have this idea in our head, how come we can't do that and extrapolate it further to other units? Why can't we do that, right? Because if you just want to use a shell's specific skill, then it really just matters on you just want the skill, right? And then you just use the matrix available on this shell to help you facilitate to get you the stats you desire. Okay, so I'll show you a couple of examples of what I have done here. The next one that a lot of people are doing nowadays, right? If we go in here and we go all the way down to, let's use the most cliche one, Viper. Okay, look at Viper here. My Viper is on Bloodbath, Momentum, Swift Rate. But if you look at the shell and what it gives you, it does not give you Bloodbath at all, right? Golden Lion, we know, does not have Bloodbath. But what do? We force the Bloodbath onto, Viper. And why is that? It's because we want Viper to survive longer, so we're using Bloodbath as a form of mitigation to get your unit, to survive longer in a battle. But then, we also want the benefit of Golden Lion, which is every 2 times an Animus, the host Animus uses skill 1, increases the host damage dealt by 8% and effect accuracy by 15, and it stacks up to 5 times. We want this because we know that if we're going to be playing Viper, we have to bring him into the long game. Therefore, he gets to ramp up the Golden Lion because he's going to constantly counter with his S1, he's going to get the effect of Golden Lion, his final damage is going to increase, his effect accuracy is going to increase, and in the long run, he is going to benefit out of this, right? And so, you can see we have forced the Bloodbath onto him, and then I use Momentum as a 6 piece because my Golden Lion has Momentum on it to get the 12% crit rate, which is what I need to hit myself, to this 89% crit rate. Okay, to get myself to as close as 100% because it's impossible to do that if you're not, following the sets and, using, Fury Edge and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Then I have this Swift Rate here because that's where I want him to get some amount of speed. Okay? You can see he's not very fast, right? He's about 242 speed. But this is a respectable enough speed for Viper, in my opinion. And so, we got the tank in here, we got the stats in here, and we got, you know, the speed in here. So all we're really doing here is we're using the set to protect ourselves, and then we're going to use all the substats, all the main stats available to us alongside the matrix available on the shelf to try to build a holistic unit. Alright, and so this is what I have on my Viper. I'll give you another example here. Okay, let's look at Siana. Now, Siana is on Law of Silence, and we know Law of Silence does not have Bloodbath. But because I want my Siana to survive into the long game, because if you think about how a unit works, okay, you know that Siana needs to survive into the long game to get all the orbs on her. Therefore, she's going to get attack increase, crit damage increase, effect resistance increase, damage reduction increase, all of that good stuff, especially during after her buff. And so for me to hit this stat line here, okay, 3k attack, 312 crit damage, and 190 speed, you don't need to be too fast because you want your healers, your supporters, your buffers all to move so that she constantly gains stacks, and when she moves she just cleaves, right? How do I do that? I have myself on Bloodbath, which is again forced, and then I'm using Keen Eye as a 6-piece, right, to get myself the extra crit damage. Fury Edge is what I really care about because I want the extra crit rate and I want the extra crit damage. That is how I am hitting my stat line, because at the end of the day, once you think about an entire unit's purpose, how you want to use that unit, how that unit actually functions, then you use the set to complement it. Okay, and so I'm using Bloodbath to get myself to the late game so that, you know, she mitigates enough damage till the 3 ops comes up. Then the 3 ops kicks into effect alongside Bloodbath and she becomes extremely tanky. But at the same time, I want her to do damage, and therefore I went with the Keen Eye here to get myself more crit damage. I went with the Fury Edge, crit rate, crit damage to get myself more damage again. Then I worry on the main stat being crit damage, attack, crit rate. And that's how I am hitting my stats. And why Law of Silence? Is because Law of Silence, number one, it's a buff. Siana wants buff, synergizes pretty well. She stays hidden, therefore, you know, you can't directly, you know, counter her or, you know, do anything that you need to do. There is also, you know, AoE damage reduction from Law of Silence being in Void State. You get F-Res already being in Void State. All that kind of good stuff, right? And that is how I built my Siana. And so, if you extrapolate that even further, I've shown you Viper. I've shown you, you know, Siana. How about let's look at my Tiamat here. Now my Tiamat is on Battle Wheel Bloodbath, and why is that? It's because if you look at Amber, we know Amber is the best shot on her because of the way she interacts with it. She gets the healing and then she gets into dragon form, so she gets a second form of life and immediately takes the turn anyway, which can be pretty devastating to cleave. And so if I want to use this Amber shell, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, nobody willingly hits a Tiamat to begin with. But when Tiamat takes a turn, she needs to be impactful. That's how I'm looking at it because of the way I play. And so, if I look at the set that I have on her, she has Bloodbath, Bramble, Swiss Smite. If I really want to go down the bruiser route and just go, you know, I want to take advantage of every single set that is on this. I want to get the speed, I want to get, you know, the counter attacks, I want to get the Bloodbath effect, I want to get the defense percentage of the Bramble, I want to get the speed and the effect accuracy of the Swiss Smite. I can do that. But at the same time, I can also go down this route and go, okay, all I really care about from Amber is his skill, it's the Amber skill and the effect of Bloodbath. And so if I just use Bloodbath to help me finish up my 3-piece set here, I can use an 8-piece set and just force it in, because a Battle Wheel Tiamat can do a lot of damage. Alright? Because there are times you're gonna go S1, you proc Battle Wheel, you S1 again. Somehow you're already at, you know, 8 stacks, you transform into Dragon Form, you get to press S1, you proc the Battle Wheel again, and then you hit again, and this is all done in your turn, and by the time they reach back to your opponent is probably half dead. Not only that, if you're in Amber, you die, you go into Dragon Form, you know, press S1 in your AoE, you can proc AoE again, and then do 2 AoEs in one sitting and just absolutely nuke your opponent because you get your full HP, and that's where all her damage comes from, right? And so this is how I have built my Tiamat, because I don't build her on banking on the fact that I want you to hit me, because if you think about it really logically, no one willingly hits a Tiamat. No one willingly hits a Tiamat. And so if I'm gonna be using my turn, I want to use my turn to the fullest, even though there is only a 20% chance to follow up attack. That's all that matters, because if you really think about it, if you play Bramble, you are also banking on a 25% chance to counter attack with the basic attack anyway. Okay? And so it's a matter of what gamble do you want to play. Do you want to play the gamble where they must interact with you, therefore if they interact with you, only will you have that 25% chance? Or do you want to take it upon yourself to go in and have that chance to proc it? And I went with that one. Okay? Another one that I want to show you guys here is my Hoyan. Okay? You can see that my Hoyan is on Bulwark, Harvest, and Fury Edge. And we know that Taigian does not have, doesn't have Harvest here, right? Whether he has it or not, I'm pretty sure he does, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. But the Tiger Yin that I have does not have it. Does that mean I can't play Tiger Yin? No. That means that if I want to, use this setup, I just have to force in an 8-piece, and voila, it's done. Because I am still using the Bulwark on Tiger Yin, I'm still using the Fury Edge on Tiger Yin. Okay, and so you can see that this is what I have on her, and why am I putting her on Harvest is because I want her to, ignore 30% more defense when I am slapping you. Okay, and that can usually do a significant amount of damage, and that is what I want on her. So I went with this build. Okay, did I let, this stop me because I don't have it? No, I didn't. I just forced it in because I used a data set that I already acquired since season 0 when we were using Revelation. I extrapolated it, and now I'm using on my Tiamat, I'm using on my Viper, I'm using on my Siana, I'm using on my Hoyan. And that is how you should be building your units, because when you do this, people will also get confused, because when you draft, you can see what shell they bring and you can tell roughly what they have on them. But if you build units like this with, some creativity, some ideas, some intentions behind what you're doing, you can always bamboozle your opponent. Even me. I'm gonna be looking at, I'm gonna just think, okay, this is what he's using. But I won't think in the back of my head like, oh shit, it's actually a Battle Will Tiamat, and I just lost the game because I just said I'm gonna ignore Tiamat. I'm gonna make sure I try to get the team down first while I try to get my wounds on top of Tiamat before I start interacting with her. Or when she goes to Dragon, that's when I actively try to kill her. No, I just do this, and then my opponent is not ready for an S1, an S3 into an S1 into an S1 transform, S1, S1, and they're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? So that is what I want to talk to you guys about. Don't let a certain, shell hinder you from ever trying to build a unit. Okay? That is the most important thing. Think outside the box a little bit, and this is what makes the game fun. Alright? Everyone has a lot of shells, everyone has a lot of gear, put them to use. But that's the video. If you found value, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and tell me in the comments that you found value. I'll catch you guys next time.